evening. It is Tuesday, September 16th at 6:03 p.m. and we are here in the Nashua North Boardroom for the Policy Committee. I'm here, Heather Raymond. We have Rob Johnson.
Here.
We have Regan Lampier. We have Mr. Posca, and we have Shrey Shah, one of our student board reps. Are we having any other guests this evening, Mr. Posca?
We do not.
Okay. Are we going to have a guest for the full board for the parental rights?
I think we're going to see it. We just had a conversation, training with our administrators about it today. So I think we're trying to figure out what the next steps would be and how the best way to explain it to everybody. But I think at this point, Dr. Andre, Dr. Scarpati, and myself are feeling pretty good about our ability to explain it based upon the feedback and the trainings we've received.
Okay. All right, great. So I kind of jumped right into it without waiting for everybody. So tonight we have 5 policies. They are all required by law. The first one is required because of a state law that was passed this year. And then the other ones all are from updates to the Ed 306s that the state school board passed earlier this year as well. So that's where we're at. So there's some wordsmithing we can do, but not a lot because a lot of this comes directly from statute. So diving right in, the first policy on the agenda is AB, the New Hampshire Parental Bill of Rights. And this is pretty much verbatim from the statute.
It is, and I think, this is a bill that a lot of the things that are in the Parental Bill of Rights are codified elsewhere. So most of this is not all new. It lives in other places, but it does put all under one policy or place the rights parents have with respect to their child's education. So it kind of puts it all in one place from that perspective. And Ms. Raymond, I defer to you how you want to go about talking about each one of these, because within this Bill of Rights, as you can see, there's 19 pieces to it.
There are, and I think for anyone who's interested in tracking what's new versus what has existed in New Hampshire state law for some time, the Department of Education has a website where you can look up, if you just Google New Hampshire DOE technical advisories. Back in August of 2022, they published a list of all the parental rights in education that were already in law, and 90% of what is in this policy was already there back in 2022. There's very little that's new. I'm very familiar with it because this came to my committee at the State House, and we debated it hotly, and I offered several amendments and a competing bill, all of which lost. So I don't know if we want to just dive into questions, if people have had a chance to look at it at home, or if you want us to kind of read it out loud.
My first question is, could you point out which ones are new?
I think that if I could kind of go through them in order and tell you what ones might bring up more discussion, I think that might be a way to go about doing it, if that's okay with you, Ms. Lampier. I'm going to go through 1 and 2 are pretty straightforward about what it is. Number 3.
Oh, wait, I'm just going to add that number 1 and 2 already existed in state law. The only addition to number 2 is the legal reference there. The RSA 193.1 and 194F1 are fairly new statutes, but the rest of it was existing.
So if I jump into number 3, again, this already exists. So at this time, a parent has a right to request a different educational setting to avoid manifest educational hardship. There is already a manner in which parents can go about doing that. I think in conjunction with SB 97, which talks about intra-district transfers. There's kind of, they're separate, but they could go together if you look at it. So a parent has a right to say, okay, I've had an issue at X school in the district. Based upon that, and based upon all the things that are going, I would like to request an opportunity to go to another district to avoid any more hardships. The superintendent works with the other superintendent of the possible receiving school to go through that process. That exists already. I think one of the changes that going forward now is also, if that request goes in, the money then follows that student to the other district. So it's almost about a school choice, and the money following that student to the receiving school's district.
But I think we have a policy called manifest educational hardship that goes over exactly what circumstances qualify to have that occur. And those typically come to the board. So I don't know if we've had any in the last 2 years, but prior to that, this board has had hearings for families who are requesting, for a lot of different reasons, their child attend a school outside of Nashua. You know, it's usually because of some extraordinary event that has happened in the family or the child's life, where the best interest of the child is served elsewhere. I'm thinking of a circumstance where years and years and years ago, back when I was a social worker, where the children's parents passed away. And the child had to go live with a relative, and the relative could not get them to school. Like they could not get them to school here. They wanted them to go to a district that was closer to their relative's job. And given the circumstances, like they made a compelling argument that we should let that child go to the other school for the remainder of the school year. So those kinds of situations are pretty extreme.
And I think to Ms. Raymond's point, those conversations then end up at the board level for the board to determine that. So the board would have to decide that, the superintendent would make a recommendation, but the board would actually have to take action on it.
Yep.
So this says enroll in a public school other than the public school assigned to them. Does this mean that if they have a manifest educational hardship, they can't request a private school or a charter school, or does this apply only to fully public schools?
It only refers to public schools.
Okay.
So Nashua to Londonderry. be
Okay.
working together.
It wouldn't be like to a charter school within the district or anything like that?
No.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
The manifest educational hardship, how is that determined? Like, we have one, but how do we determine what that is?
We literally pull up the policy, and there's like a checklist
There's a
of
checklist.
what circumstances are allowed. And we
None of
usually
that's
have,
changed with the state.
not at this time. And we usually have an attorney guiding us through the process.
Okay.
And again, that would be up to the parent to kind of provide evidence and documentation of why it's such a burden. And that's why then it becomes for the board and the board to determine if in fact this is a burden that has to be acted upon.
So we can pull up that policy if you want to reference it.
I think, well,
But
Ms.
we'll move
Raymond's
on while I
gonna
look it
do
up.
that.
Yeah.
The other piece of it that is also a little bit connected is SB 97. Now, this is a new law that says intra-district transfers. So prior to July 1st, if a parent requests they currently go to school A in the district and they want to go to school B in the district, and they apply prior to July 1st, the superintendent must grant that right to transfer unless there is no room based upon existing school capacity. And that last phrase is the challenging phrase, and that's really where there has been some, I think there needs to be more clarification. I think we've had some, talking to some legal counsel who says legal capacity refers to the existing fire code for the building. So if the building can house 570 kids, then that's your existing school capacity. Other legal counsel will say, well, that wasn't the intent of how it was supposed to be written. It was supposed to be about, class size or classroom management. I probably would agree with that, but that's not how it's written in the law, and I think that's kind of a challenge that we currently possess. So that's really, prior to July 1, if that request comes in, I think we'll deal with more of this for this upcoming school year. We'd have to deal with it. Currently, we still have a variance process in place that we follow. So we're going to continue following our variance process as it is in place currently right now.
So with this, anyone can just make a request before July 1st, and they don't have to give a reason or anything. They can just say, hey, I want so-and-so to go here,
Correct.
Within the district,
within the district, yes.
right? So if you live in the Birch Hill School District, but you would like bicentennial, you have to submit a request before July 1st.
But we don't need to provide transportation for them, right?
No.
That's their fault, yeah.
Yeah, no transportation.
No
So
transportation.
just backing up to manifest educational hardship, the policy for that is JCA. And it is defined in statute, RSA 193.3, that says manifest educational hardship is a student has a documented hardship in his or her current educational placement, and such hardship has a detrimental effect on the student's academic achievement, physical safety, or social and emotional well-being. The hardship must be so severe, pervasive, and persistent that it interferes with the student's ability to receive an education. So it's pretty significant.
And when was that last updated?
2022.
Okay.
And then that policy JCA lays out exactly what steps parents have to take in order to request that. So, and then I'm sure we'll get a policy at some point for the new variance process, but the SB 72. 72,
I
yeah.
think we'll probably have to have some more discussions about that as it comes up. I think to Ms. Raymond's point, I think as we get into this, and I think this is a good example, there are other policies that are in place that are impacted by what we're bringing forward now. So it's this continual revision of some things that are already in place.
So 4 is gifted or special education programs. That is existing state law.
Do we
It's been
have
state
to
law for a long
use,
time.
sorry to interrupt, do we have to use the term gifted? That seems backwards to me.
Yes, because that is the language in the statute.
That is the language in the statute. It would be a gifted and talented program.
Which don't exist in the state of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
They haven't since the 90s.
They haven't, and it does not apply to AP programs based upon what we've heard from legal counsel.
I really wanted it to apply to AP programs in case anyone was wondering.
But I mean, it's already, like, no one says no to those things. Like, if you want to take an AP class, no one says you're not allowed to or you can't. I don't think
Oh,
so.
Mr. Shaw, you have missed the drama that has existed in the Raymond household this fall.
Oh, wow.
So typically they don't say no. However, I learned this year that the two high schools do not proactively communicate with each other over AP course enrollment. So if a course is offered at one school but not the other school, it is entirely possible for all of the students at the second school that doesn't have it to not get in.
Wait, sorry, say that again? So all the students at the school where class is offered can't take the
No,
class?
so for example, if there's an AP course that's only having one session and it fills up in the building that it's filled up in, there's no obligation to offer a second session for the students from the other school.
Yeah, that happened to me quite a few times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think that should happen.
okay.
Mr. Posca and I have had long conversations about it, and I'm sure he's tired of hearing my opinion on the subject.
It's good conversations.
So anyways, back to the list. Number 5, we already have a policy regarding disclosure to parents. However, this new one changes it significantly and overrides it. So our current policy, JLP, which was passed in 2024, added, based on a law that was passed last year, that policy said that school district personnel must answer questions from parents or guardians regarding students' mental, emotional, physical health, well-being, or sexuality, services, unless unless they feel that disclosing the information will put the child at risk of abuse or neglect. The parental rights bill that was passed this year and that we are now having to make a policy about removed the exception. So now, and I'm on the DCYF advisory board, and we talked about this yesterday. So now the law says that school staff must answer any questions that a parent asks them, regardless of the topic, if they know the answer, and regardless of the impact on the child. Now, it does not, it doesn't interfere with the school staff's duty to report. So if the school staff feels that making that disclosure is going to put the child at risk of abuse or neglect, they must call DCYF and tell them that the child has disclosed that this is happening. Whether DCYF takes that up or not is not something we can do. But teachers cannot withhold information from parents under any circumstances. I think I covered that. Is that what the
I
civil
think you
rights
did. I
attorney?
think I was thinking to Ms. Lynn, this is probably the one that has a lot of, be a challenge, because now if you're a staff member and it's reasonable to expect that you're not going, what you're providing is not, if you were meeting with a school counselor and the predominant, most of your conversations are kept confidential, and you think you're going to someone in confidence because others, then it should be remaining confidential. But if parents ask you direct questions, as a staff member, you need to provide, the factual, response to that. If the response is, I don't know, that's still a good answer if you do not know that answer. And if you're not sure, if someone asks you something, we have 10 business days to respond to that parent about the question. So,
But you
staff
don't need
member is
to-
at Market Basket, and someone comes up to them about, hey, how's my child doing in science? Fair question. All right, I'm gonna have to get back to you. I don't know now, et cetera, et cetera. That was a low-hanging fruit, and I purposely took that. Could be something more to it that you'd have to get back on. But even when you're out and about and you're asked that question, you will still have to respond within those 10 business days. Sorry, Ms. Raymond.
That's all right, but I do want to say,
So, sorry to interrupt. So even if you're in the community and someone asks you, not at school?
no.
Okay.
This is about inquiring of school personnel. You can't talk to your teacher out in the community. However, they're also on their private time, right? So
Just the answer, but then they still have to respond.
they have to respond at some point. So the teacher should try and remember that they've been asked this question and then answer it from their school email when they get back to the school, right? On their work day. However, it does not require staff to do research into the answer if it is not regarding something like school related. So if a parent wants to know who their child is dating and the teacher's like, I don't know, the teacher doesn't have to go investigate that question. They can say, I don't know, right?
That's correct.
But if the teacher wants to know how their child did on the last assessment or how they're getting along with their lab partner and the teacher sees that every day, the teacher should be able to say, actually they're having this issue with their lab partner where they're not really getting along, right? So the individuals in the State House felt very strongly that teachers were not sharing relevant information home when asked. That has not been my experience as a parent, but I don't know that I'm reflective of all parents. Yeah.
So to me, this seems like a fishing expedition. And if you're saying that that teachers, if they're not aware of who this child is like dating, they don't have to do investigations on that, right? Is that the case whether the child is in a cis relationship with two people of a different genders, or if they're in if they were in like a same-sex relationship? Would the teachers be responsible to tell the parents, or do the investigation and tell the parents in that case?
No, the teacher doesn't have to investigate the answer to the question.
If they don't know
They
the answer.
don't know. However, if the teacher has seen the child walking around school or kissing somebody at school, and so it's in their brain that they know it, they have to disclose it if the parent asks. They don't have to like call up every parent and like keep a running list of every social activity that all kids are doing, right? However, if a parent asks, they have to answer them. And of course, we already have our behavior code JIC. So if students are engaging in behaviors at school that are problematic or concerning, like bullying or raping or, otherwise doing things that are concerned, staff should be telling the parent about that stuff. And it's our expectation already that they're giving information home that there's a concern here.
Okay.
But this was really, frankly, this was aimed at a court case that happened in Manchester where the parent wanted the school to out a trans kid. They sued the school and lost at the state Supreme Court. The court said, no, there's nothing in statute saying that the school has an obligation to out kids. And so they changed the law.
So with this, if they call and inquire about another child that's not their own,
No.
they can't.
FERPA still applies. You have no rights
No
to any
obligation to
child
that.
that is not
Even
your
if they
own.
say it's a relationship with their child.
No, you can't. That even in bullying situations, the school is prohibited from talking about the other student,
Right.
right? You get to know about your own child because you have parental rights, but you don't have the rights to the information for any other child.
For any other child. And there's no issues with the personnel letting the student know that the parents inquired?
There's nothing in the state law that says anything about that.
So they can be in touch with the student if they hear from the parent. They can reach out to the student before they submit the answer.
I'm not quite sure what you're asking, Mr. Johnson.
So like if the parent calls and asks the teacher a question about their student and the teacher knows the answer,
They should tell the answer.
can they talk to the student and say, hi, I just want to let you know your parent contacted me. I'm going to give them this information just so you have knowledge beforehand.
I mean, I go back to the first part of the question. If the parent asks the question directly to
The teacher,
the staff member is obligated to
within 10 days.
respond truthfully to that, particularly if they know the answer. That if you know the answer at that time, you know the answer at that time. You know, if you're worried about a response, again, when we've talked to staff, if you're concerned, then say I can't talk at this time. Let me get back to you.
Right.
Yep.
You know?
But I mean, they should be answering the question unless they are literally in the middle of doing something else and cannot answer the question at that time.
So the answer is expected.
The answer is expected. And again, if the staff member feels that by answering the question, the child will be in danger. Because we know that some kids are in danger at home and they'll come to school and say, if you tell my parent this, they're gonna kick me out, right? And there was a lot of hyperbole in the hearings about, well, kids say parents are gonna kill them all the time. That's not what I'm talking about.
No.
There are kids who know that if their parent finds out their sexuality or whatever other detail, that the parent will kick them out. We know that there are a number of homeless youth in our state. That is a call to DCYF. So the staff member must tell the parent, but they also must report to DCYF that the child has reported that this information is making them unsafe.
Okay.
So we are obligated, like if a child tells us that their parent might kick them out, if they have, or any child who's underage tells us that their parents might kick them out for any reason, we're obligated to report that to DCYF? Does that always count as a reason for concern? I mean, I think it would, but
Sounds like a reasonable concern, and again, what is the plan in place? It might be an appropriate, I think it's always, one of the things we say, if you're wondering whether or not you should contact DCYF, the answer is yes, you should contact DCYF.
okay.
So if that comes up, I think that's a good question for DCYF to provide some guidance on the next steps.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So, but I mean, I think some of the hypothetical situations that were posited at the State House where, you know, a child has not followed some home rule, right? Like they've brought their cell phone to school when they were told they weren't supposed to have it, or, you know, they're wearing an outfit that the parent specifically said they can't wear. And the parent calls the school to say, hey, did my kid bring this to school? And the school knows, yes, in fact, your child did do that. You know, at that point, if the kid says, if you tell my parent that I have done this, I will get injured at home, that's when you call DCYF. If the kid says, my mom's going to be really mad if you tell her, well, you still have to tell her, right?
Exactly right.
So that's where the line is, kind of, because we know kids are, it's difficult to decide. But when in doubt, let DCYF decide. Oy, that was a long one. Number 6, the discipline policy, that's been in state law forever. It's posted on our website, policy JIC for anyone who wants to look it up. The curricular and co-curricular programs, that's been in state law for a long time. So kids who are home educated frequently come here and take a class or 2 classes. They also participate in our sports programs and drama, et cetera.
That's correct. So again, as we said, a lot of these are already in place, work very well. It's just under one umbrella right now.
Yep. To inspect any instructional material used as part of the curriculum upon request, that's been in state law for a very long time in New Hampshire. And I have to say, once my kids got to high school, I got a syllabus from almost every single teacher home with a list of like everything they were going to read or videos they were going to watch that I had to sign and send back.
And I think that's kind of what we talked about. I think, you know, for the most part, K to 8, our curriculums are pretty much streamlined. So our science curriculum, K to 8, is Amplify Science. Posting that online is very simple. Same thing, Eureka Squared at the elementary level, Eureka Math at the middle school level. It does get a little bit more challenging at the high schools because of the variety of courses that are offered there. And to the point, what we've asked is that all staff have syllabi available. So if Mrs. Raymond wants to know, hey, what is going on what are the expectations in the English 10 class? What are you reading? If you go through the syllabus, here are the grading expectations, here are the course expectations, here are the resources we're looking at, here are the materials that we're utilizing throughout the course. And that's all there. That's the transparency of the curriculum. No different than what's been in place previously. It just puts it, kind of publicizes it right now and puts people on, if there's a parent or guardian wants to know about it, we're obligated to present that information to them.
Yeah, and at the high school level, that really does happen. I mean, everyone does get syllabi, sorry. And even for the AP classes, they have to submit that to the college board first to get the stamp of approval from them before they can send it out. So everything really does occur. Like I have all these syllabuses and stuff, syllabi.
So at South, do you typically have to get your parents' signature on those?
Depends. Some classes do, some classes don't. But I mean, the syllabi are there.
Right, like I didn't have to sign my kids for like math, but like my son is taking horror and
Lit.
of
Horror
the
and lit.
unknown.
Best class. Best class.
With Miss Paling, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Class, best teacher.
so he's taking it here at North, so it's a different teacher, but it was really cool to see all of the books and the movies that they were gonna watch and read and talk about how much I hate those movies.
We lent movies to the teacher, so we have our own
But yeah, some of the books.
excessive library of horror movies.
Right, some of the books are on our home bookshelves, but the movies, I was like, oh, enjoy.
This just shows that, like, if a parent asks a teacher for the syllabus, they have to give it. That's basically it, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, I guess that was happening already.
Yep, and I saw something on social media, Lord help us, recently with someone who had an issue with an assignment that their child had brought home, and I was like, reach out to the teacher, right? Like that should always be the first thing, that if your child brings something home and you don't understand it or don't like it, your very first step should be to email the teacher so they can walk you through it. The next couple ones are to opt out of materials. So this has been state law in New Hampshire for a very long time. So if reading that syllabus or just seeing something that your child has brought home, if you don't want your child to do that assignment, parents have the right to opt out. Now, the other caveat of that, and there's a whole policy for that, is that a substitute assignment has to be made.
That's correct.
So it's not opting out and now my child doesn't have to learn anything about the Revolutionary War. It's opting out and having a different text about the Revolutionary War or a different reading assignment or whatever.
And I think just a lot of times, it's objectionable material probably based upon religious beliefs. If someone says, I want to opt out of music because my music is not, there's nothing religious about it, so that's not a fair question or a fair expectation to opt out of that. They've talked about, a lot of times it comes up during health education, and this is why this has been prevalent in health education for a number of years. So it has to kind of meet the parameters of the objectionable requirement based upon what the beliefs are of the parent.
I see. So the 0.5 health credit that's required by the high schools, that can't be evaded because you say, oh, I don't want to take health.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Shoot, I haven't finished my credit yet.
No, you have to
I could
take
skip.
health. Health is required by law. But you can opt out of certain topics. And for health specifically, we have a policy IHAM, which has the instructions for how to exempt out of the parts that parents object to. And for all other materials, we've had a policy IGE forever. That goes through the instructions for how to opt out. I can't seem to get it.
How do you have these off the top of your head? IJH, IJK? What?
I have it up on my computer,
Oh,
but
okay. I was like, wow.
but IGE, the opt-out, has been on the books here in Nashua since 2012. So this is not new. People are worried about it, but it's not new. The academic questionnaires, you can opt your child out of any non-academic survey or questionnaire. I think the only real one is the youth behavior risk survey. And we have another policy, of which I don't remember the number right off the top of my head, specifically for the youth behavior risk survey and how the school has to notify parents. I forget how much in advance, like a week
Yeah, I
or
always
two in
remember
advance.
always getting that
Yeah,
before.
and send them the opt-out form.
Yep.
The same thing for sexual content. Before we introduce sex ed, the school is required to send a form home 2 weeks in advance to let parents know it's coming so that they can opt out if they want. Whew. Any other questions? Okay. Data collection, you can opt out of that. That's not new. You can opt out of the SAS assessments that the state has us do. Do you know what the percentage of opt-out here is in Nashua?
It varies by level. I think it's higher at the high school level, and then I think it decreases as you go down from there. I don't have those numbers
I
off the
opted
top
out.
of my head. When we do our, I think in October, I believe, Dr. Scarpati and I are doing a presentation about some of the school data. I think we'll make sure we'll put that on there because I think that's a good question.
I think it's important, and hold on one second, Mr. Shaw. Is there still a penalty for schools when the opt-out gets more than, I think it was like 5 or 10%?
Yes, I mean, we are talked about, there's questions about why is there an increasing percentage opt-out in one school versus another school, so it does kind of raise some questions from the state level.
But I think it used to ding our overall scores. Like they used to actually reduce the score of the school if you had too many kids opting out.
Yes, and I think there's going to be there's some updates coming regarding state assessment over the course of this year. We were just at a state meeting the other day, and I think kind of the state assessment is kind of, I don't want to say a point of emphasis, but going to be a point of more discussion kind of going forward about how we're utilizing that data and any data. I think what we more importantly want to have consistent data that we can talk about. So talk about the academic progress of our students and talk about, the impact, of the curriculums that we're utilizing on student achievement as well.
Okay. Mr. Shaw?
I think we should be careful when we say that in the high school level, more people are opting out. because there's also a different reason behind it, right? Like I personally opted out of the school SAT because, you know, I took it in March and I had a good score in March and I didn't want to take it again for school for no reason. And I know a bunch of other students who've done the same thing that I did. So
We're not talking about SAT, we're talking about SAS.
they still do SAS in high school?
Mostly middle, but yeah, in high
Mostly,
school as well.
there's still some state assessment for science that has to occur,
Oh, really? Sorry.
not SAT.
That's okay, yeah. SAT is its own thing.
Its own entity.
Okay. Yep.
The state doesn't take into consideration why kids are opting out if they ding us or reduce our scores because someone opts out, right?
Nope.
Okay.
They don't.
Nope. Where I forget.
13? 13.
Yep. You have the right to receive information regarding achievement and academic growth on the state assessments, and that's actually something that gets mailed home.
Yep.
So, and it has for quite some time. You have a right to a report card. Again, that's very typical. I know that when my kids were in elementary school, I used to get them in paper, and then I don't remember for middle school, and then high school it's all online.
The middle school, right around that time, the state changed to make it more readily available to parents for online access to view the results of the SAS testing. So there's a parent portal that they can get into to see their students' results on the testing.
Okay. And then for our Nashua district report cards, are those all online now?
They're not all online.
Like if I want to know for example, if I want to know how my teenagers are doing in their classes, I just go on the parent portal, which is easier on the new website, right? And I get their report card that way.
You can access on the parent portal, and that's where a lot of them come through, but there's also the request to access a paper copy. We're also obligated, when asked, to provide paper copies.
Oh, I should ask for that. Okay. Questions? Okay. So to review the education records within 10 days after the request, that's also not new. To consent in writing before any video or voice recordings are made of the child, except when that is part of a child protective services situation. So that is also not new. So every year, the school sends home some forms to sign, and one of those is whether or not you consent to having your child have their picture taken and published on the websites. And I know that the schools take those seriously because when I was at Sunset Heights last year, they got an award for test scores going up, and Senator Maggie Hassan came to visit, and she brought her media with her, right? And so I happened to be there, and the principal had a list of all of the students who had opted out, and so Senator Hassan's media people couldn't go in the classrooms where those students were because they didn't want their images to be accidentally in the background or whatever. And I thought that was really great.
The principals do an outstanding job of making sure they maintain that, because I think, parents go to great length to make sure to identify that they made the determination not to have their child videoed. Yep. So it's our obligation to follow up on that. Principals do an outstanding job.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of DCYF-related stuff, like kids who are in foster care and stuff.
Correct.
There's a complicated system of who can approve those things, so a lot of times they just don't get approved.
Two additional pieces I just want to add to this one. This does not, camera surveillance that we have in the school is not covered under this, so that doesn't follow. And when it comes to voice recordings, New Hampshire is a two-party state, so both parties have to consent to the audio being utilized.
Yep. So, and then the carve-out for DCYF is that there's a separate state law, part under RSA 169C, that requires DCYF, if they have a report that is so emergent that they must go to the school to interview a child before they go home, they're required by law to videotape that interaction. And then that videotape is accessible to the parent, and it frequently is used during the court hearings. so that there's a record of what DCYF said. Basically, make sure they're doing their job properly. Same thing with the police when they're working in conjunction with DCYF. To notified when seclusion and restraint has been used on their child. We know that this is in state law because Christina and Reagan and I worked on really beefing up the Nashua policy last year.
Just moving it over to one other umbrella, but yes, I think this is already codified and in place.
Yep. To access and review all medical records of their child maintained by school or school personnel. Again, this is also, this was new to the list of things, but up until now, it has been considered part of their school record. So parents already had access to it. To exempt their child from immunizations if a physician says it's detrimental to their health or if there's a religious objection. That's been in state law for a long time. And then the next section is regarding federal law for students in Title I schools, which has existed for quite some time. And then the other new part is Part B that says that the superintendent must make sure there's a whole copy of this in the annual report. We don't do an annual report, so I'm not sure how that will work for Nashua. That it is posted on our website and that it will be printed in the handbooks. What is the plan for the annual report? Would it be part of the budget?
I think that's something we have to kind of define where that annual report should, where some of that information should be. One should live on a regular basis, but I think the other aspects of kind of posting this on the website and the handbooks going forward, kind of makes some sense. Obviously, this is a new policy that's just coming online. Probably something probably we can get up on the website with expedite that. The school handbooks we probably have to work on kind of going forward in the next coming years, but have some documentation online about where they can find it.
Okay. So I'm going to move that we send AB without changes to the full board.
Second.
Okay. I will not be going over it line by line at the full board.
Okay.
No.
So, any other discussion before we vote?
I just want to say I hate this
Yeah. So
particular policy, but state law is state law, so.
I just don't think. I wrote a whole op-ed in the Union Leader and the Concord Monitor earlier this year about this bill, which people are welcome to go look up in their archives. I just really think that part of the work of parenting and raising children through adolescence is teaching them to become their own selves as opposed to the property of the parent. And I think that forced outing is antithetical to having a safe and supportive relationship with your child. And so that is all I will say on that. I would vote against this for that reason, except that our district would be in trouble with the state if we don't pass it. So this is one of those circumstances where the responsibility of being a board member has to outweigh my personal feelings.
Agreed.
So all in favor? Aye.
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 One of us could say no, and then it would still pass. 3-0, it goes to the full board.
Yeah.
Ugh. Well, that was heavy. So the next policy is less heavy, and that is homework. The new Ed 306s require school boards to have a district policy on homework, which is fascinating to me.
I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of the policies that will be coming up in the next couple ones, and even in October, are all probably under the umbrella of the Ed 306 updates that have come through. This just documents that we have to have a homework policy that's in place. I think when Ms. Raymond and I spoke about this, Again, it's a new policy, so we're, kind of just adopting what was presented to us, and we wanted to give some flexibility to the buildings and to the content areas for what is best practice for them. So there is some flexibility in there, I think, as it is written, for that to happen. But again, we want to promote some consistency as you go through the wording in there. I don't think there's anything crazy in there. Homework can't be disciplinary, so we can't say, Mr. Johnson has to write 100 times, I will bring my book to class. That's not the point of homework. It has to be related to the content and how it's going to be built upon for more learning. So again, I think the way the policy is currently written provides some flexibility for that. And I know at the building levels, they're working on promoting some consistency with homework expectations in departments.
Can you, Ms. Lampier, can you write me down as no on the last vote?
I'm sorry, what is it?
Can you record me as no on the last vote?
Yes,
Oh,
of course.
yes. Oh,
Well, I
sorry,
can't
that's
because I
me.
don't have the paperwork, but
Doesn't matter, because my vote doesn't matter, right?
neither does mine, really.
Oh, well, yeah, but you have the right to vote and have it recorded.
Yeah, and
Yay.
since I'm the student representative, student, what the students want.
Yes, so we want to make sure that goes into the record.
Yeah, and this homework bill, I just read it. It's quite simple, quite basic. It's good on my end.
So I had a couple thoughts on when I was reading this one. The first is that there's something new. The assigning teacher will provide a written class homework policy. And I don't think I've ever gotten something like that wasn't part of a syllabus. So since this is district-wide, will all of our teachers at the elementary and middle school level have to create something like that to send home at the beginning of the school year?
I think as Shrey alluded to, a lot of the, if it's, maybe at the middle school level, it's not called a syllabi, maybe it's course expectations, but I think it does detail those expectations for how we come up with a grade. If in Mr. Posker's social studies class, my homework was worth 10% of your grade, and you had, formative assessments might be worth X amount, and summative assessments might be worth Y amount, and that's how you came up with the grade policy. And I think, that's where we talked about kind of the consistency within the department. So, I'll go back to my college days. I knew if I took Professor X, I needed to write this 20-page research paper, and I was in trouble. But if I got Professor Y, I had to write the reflection papers, 1 pages, and I could get through that. Same class, maybe some different expectations there. I think we want to promote some consistency with our expectations within those content areas, and I think kind of those conversations do lend themselves. So I do believe those exist. Might not be called a syllabi, might be more of a course expectations, but they are detailed somewhere, for the parents to understand how we got up with how is it we're going to come up with a grade for the students.
All right, so I just think that you'll have to figure out a way
Thanks.
to have the teachers communicate this home, like make it that it's posted on Google Classroom or whatever, because I feel like that kind of information is something I got at open house night, but not all of our parents are able to attend open house night, so it has to be accessible in some way.
And I agree with you. I also think it's good to provide a sense of responsibility for the students. If the student knows at the start of the year that, hey, it's my responsibility to do X amount of homework every single day because, I have to take notes on, say, the U.S. history textbook every single day. Like, that's a good expectation you're setting in stone in writing and also communicating that to the parent. So that's why I think that's beneficial. Second, I really like how it says whether and how homework assignments will relate to the overall class grade. I like that because, it's good so you know how much effort to put in certain assignments. If something's going to be, if something's going to be worth, if it's going to be weighted as summative, then I want to know that so I know how much I have to, how nicely I have to do it.
Right. It's, when Mr. Posca and I were talking about this policy, I told him about my experience with my kids. They went to Birch Hill for elementary school. And back then we did the district did this teacher leader program where teachers investigated a topic and then gave a presentation at the end of the year. And so Mr. Trammell, who's my children's teacher, decided to pilot no homework in the 4th grade. And it was great. It was great because we already had a family policy that we don't cry over homework. And so my rule was if you've spent more than 15 minutes and you're still not getting it and I can't help you, we're not going to cry about it. We're going to put a pin in it and we'll ask your teacher tomorrow. Right? So when Mr. Trammell came up with this, because I think homework is supposed to be for practice at the elementary level, but it's just my thing. So when Mr. Trammell piloted the no homework thing for a year, I was like fully on board. So I'm interested to see how different teachers decide to create their own homework policies. So,
I think we should vote on the bill.
all right. All in favor? Oh, I move that we send IKB to the full board.
Oh, I'll second it. Thanks, Ron.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 And can you write me for that too?
Yeah, I am right now.
Thanks.
All right. Policy IMAH. This is one that we have had. We just haven't updated it since 2008. And the new 306s have added some information about the district wellness committee, which I know the district has had a wellness committee in the past. Do we have a wellness committee right now?
We do, it just, we have we need to get some updated members. I just met with our new food service coordinator, Mary Benoit. So we're talking about our first meeting probably sometime in October to bring that forward and get some new members on the committee. Several members of the committee have moved on. So want to have some updated committee members and be following up about that, and also talked about the policy JLCF, which will probably be more coming up about that. To this policy itself, everything is, it's very similar to what we previously had, but just talks about the importance of kind of the wellness committee chiming in and being on board with the with this physical health activities and how it's currently written, and make sure that wellness committee has it. It kind of lives under that umbrella there too of the wellness committee, those expectations.
So we'll just need the superintendent to report to us at some point every year. All right, questions?
It makes me think of the recess thing with the parent that came in with the second recess is, keeping the kids active during the day, especially the smaller kids in elementary school.
Mm-hmm. I would love to add more recess. I don't know how. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, I move IMAH to the full board for approval.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Do you have a vote, Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
What's that right? Okay. And then the next is policy JLCK. This policy we haven't updated since 2018, and there are quite a bit of changes as a result of the updates to the Ed 306s. Mr. Posca.
Yep, I'm just trying to, what do we do here, JLCK?
It was previously really, really short. It basically said, we're going to meet everyone's needs consistent with the law, IEPs, and 504s. And then now the policy kind of really stretches out what that actually means.
Correct, thank you, Ms. Raymond. I think you can see the red line version is the entire previous policy of one sentence. So kind of has broken out physical health needs of students, defining it as physical health, emotional, mental health, and prevention and intervention. So it has expanded upon it, and our recommendation is to kind of adopt the updates that have come forth based upon ED 306, and it certainly says, defines this far more than the previous policy did.
Yeah, I kind of like having it defined, because just saying, oh yeah, we'll meet their needs without saying what the special physical health needs actually means leaves a lot of room for us to not actually meet their special physical health needs.
I have a question. So under 2B, it says provide regular training for staff on mental health awareness and trauma-informed practices. Are we gonna have to take more time out of the teacher's day to do that, or is that already happening?
That occurs often. I mean, we just went through some training, and I think all of our counselors do a lot of that training. Our paras went through some of the training with the speaker that we brought in before. So it's a lot of things that are kind of baked into our professional development for them to work on. So it's
Yeah.
not necessarily during the course of the school day, but we have other avenues to provide the support and the training that those staff are asking for.
That's good. Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's not something new we're adding, and it's just something we're codifying right now.
So I did have a question about the health screenings and referrals to medical services. Because we talked about different kinds of screenings in a previous policy last year. And I'm sorry, I don't remember which policy it was at this point. But we talked about, I think it was like the school nurse, the health services, and there was a hearing screening and,
Right, that was the one we were discussing, that it was in the, not policy, but in the
Student handbook.
student
in the
handbook.
student handbook, right? So are there other types of screenings that the school would be doing without parental permission? Because I know we partner with the Tooth Fairies ladies.
Yep.
I don't know if they have an official name, but I got something
Fairies.
home as a parent to sign if I wanted my child to participate in that.
I think there's, we do some type of threat assessments, but that's with the permission of the parents. So I think as I'm going through the ones in my head, I think everything is with the permission of the parents. There are some, some of the counselors do some quick checks for safety based upon how students are presenting to them at that time. But then that result is shared with the parents after the fact. I think it's how is it in the moment is that we have to kind of amplify a potential situation and bring in some more support for the students. So there is some, I'll call it a screening. It's a correct test to go there, but I think to your point, Ms. Raymond, the parents are, made aware of why did we do this? Because of this, this is what we did, whatever those next steps may be.
Okay, and then the follow-up is referral to medical services. That is a referral that goes home to the parent, right? We're not sending a 14-year-old and saying,
Correct.
hey, go tell your mom that you need to go see the eye doctor.
Correct.
Okay.
So I just had a question because I had a foggy memory of way back when I first got on the board. There was some talk about vaccines in school. Do we still offer that?
We do not. For decades, Nashua had a contract with Public Health Services, and they would send home permission slips, and you could sign up for your child to get the flu shot at school. I did it myself with my kids for years. It was so convenient. But that has not happened, and there was a state law that was debated on prohibiting schools from being able to enter into those contracts, and I don't recall if that passed or not. But I do know that now public health still does offer those immunizations, and they do have clinics, but they are not during the school day, and they are generally out in the community somewhere.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So, which is a shame because those are expensive, and it can be difficult for parents to take time off work for that stuff. Okay. That's all I've got. So I will move to send JLCK to the full board.
Just
Oh,
one quick
sorry.
question. I just reading over things. In number 3 with prevention and intervention, we have promote anti-bullying initiatives and conflict resolution programs. Do we have some examples of those? Like, does that exist at the high school level? Do we have anti-bullying initiatives? Do we have those things existing?
There is some restorative practice work that's going on at the high school level, and those continually go on, are ongoing. When there are, issues between students,
Yeah.
counselors and social workers are working with the parties involved if they want to participate to kind of work towards some type of conflict resolution. So that is in place, particularly at the high school level where more of those.
And I like the idea of the anti-bullying initiatives, being before we have to get to resolution, and having those in place.
I feel like a group of students came and did a presentation to the board at some point about restorative justice. Do you remember that too?
It was a couple of years ago. I still have the paperwork in my files, and I take it out once in a while, look at it and go, I gotta ask about this. But I always forget to ask.
All right. I'm motion is to send JLCK to the full board. I do need a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Okay. And the last one tonight, I wasn't sure how long the parental bill of rights would take, so I gave us some extra time. The last one is JLIA. This is another entirely new policy that is required due to the State Board of Education's revision of the Ed 306s. Although I don't see Ed 306 in the legal references.
Yes, it probably should be. I'd have to double check on that.
Okay, so when I make the motion, I'm gonna say, and add the legal reference. Okay. So basically this policy says that students can't be unsupervised while they're at school.
And then it goes on to expand school property, so if you were at Stellos for a game, that is school property. If you were, in the auditorium for a school play, that is school property. So I think kind of goes on to great length to kind of talk all about those school properties and where schools still exist. So I think to Ms. Raymond's point, it just really says if there's an expectation that there's a school event and you're supposed to be supervised, there has to be supervision.
Yep.
What about in the bathrooms? It doesn't say anything about bathrooms.
It doesn't, because we don't necessarily want adults watching children in the bathrooms.
That's what I'm making sure is not happening. Oh my God, yeah. So,
But certainly adults should be poking their heads in, because we have those big doors that go, that make the stalls very private, so that if they're hearing commotions in the bathrooms, that a staff member must respond to that.
yeah, so, I'm sorry. Does this mean that, what does the supervision limit to? Is it during class time? What is it during?
I think the most important line here, it says all on the third paragraph, the last line, all school staff have a duty to help ensure the safety of students, even when such staff are not specifically scheduled for supervisory duty. So if a teacher is walking down the hall and they hear a commotion in one of the bathrooms, they can't just be like, that doesn't sound good. I think I'll walk all the way back to my classroom and then I'll call for help. They should probably investigate and find out what's happening. When I read it the first time, I was thinking about bus duty, right? Because some teachers have bus duty and other teachers are going home. But if you're going home and you notice two kids fighting, right, and the person on bus duty doesn't see them yet, you have a responsibility to do something about it. So, does that encapsulate it?
It does.
Sorry, what about outside of school time activities, such as sports or school-sanctioned events?
Yep.
That's covered under this, yep.
It includes that as well?
So there should be some school staff at school-sponsored events. And I went to the North Invitational cross-country meet this weekend, and there were like thousands of people there. But there were also a number of staff. I saw some teachers and coaches from Pennachuck. I saw teachers and coaches from South, teachers and coaches from North. I'm sure that McCarthy and Fairgrounds also had staff there. I just didn't personally see them because there were thousands of people there. But every time I turned around, there was a staff member that I knew. And I felt comfortable as a parent that if my child had an issue, there were adults around who were going to act appropriately. So I think that's what it's trying to get at, that it should never be a group of students in a school owned property or on a school bus with no adults there to help them in case something happens,
That's correct.
right?
What about the other activities that happen during school hours? Like I know we do Shishu Bharti at South on Sundays,
That's not a school event,
but it's on school property.
But it's not a school-sponsored activity.
right? So we rent out.
Okay,
We
that's
rent out
good.
the buildings to other groups. There was a gymnastics or dance competition here one weekend.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. So, but the only school staff were the custodians, and they weren't, the people running the event were responsible for security. The custodians were responsible for making sure the schools returned to school condition.
Correct.
Okay, great. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like, Big Brother's watching you type,
No, but there are cameras everywhere.
That's true.
So I wanted to ask if anyone has tried to define a reasonable duty of care and supervision.
I haven't.
All right, so, just wanted to point out, if, that we ask a lot of our teachers. It might be nice if maybe someday we could give them like a living wage, because it is a lot to be responsible for all those kids all the time. And they all do a lot of extra stuff, so.
I'm gonna Google it and see. Because I feel like that is something that is used frequently. Let's see if it's, so, yeah, I don't see anything quickly coming up. But, I hear a lot of times from parents and from others that schools are acting in the capacity of a parent while the kid is here. And I think that that goes too far, because they are not, right? But they are supervisors of the child. And if anything happens, they have a responsibility to notify the administrator so that the administrator can take action, and then the parent.
I do. I mean, I think Ms. Lampier brings up a good point. I mean, seems like that's someone with a law degree put that phrase in there. And what is the true definition of reasonable duty of care and supervision? So I think it's a fair question to ask. I think, hey, if we're having lunch duty, I think it's fair to say there should be some staff members who are there monitoring lunch duty. That's a reason. But again, what is I do not know the legal definition that you're asking, but I think it's a fair question.
Well, to be honest, it was just really dark. I looked at this and I said, geez, does that include, like, if, God forbid, there was ever a school shooting or something? And could the district be blamed and held responsible if children were killed?
I think now we're talking about, like,
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have even brought it up.
no,
I
that's okay,
apologize.
because every place that I'm seeing this reasonable duty language is in regards to litigation and negligence and lawsuits. And so I think that, for example, if there was a child who left the building on their own and was playing on the playground without any adults and they injured themselves, then the district would be liable for that child's injuries because they weren't being supervised. But if there were playground monitors out there because it was recess time and a child, quickly jumped off the slide, before someone could stop them, they were being supervised. They were just being impulsive because they're children. So I think that's where it's trying to make the line. But I'm not an attorney.
I like
Neither
your
am I.
answer, thanks. I like your answer, thank you.
So, any other questions on this one?
No, and I was just looking at it, looking as well at what you were saying, because it's basically what I've had was legal and ethical obligation to take sensible steps to ensure the safety. So, it's just, you're doing you're being responsible, you're being a responsible person.
Right. And we already have part of our restraint and seclusion law, because that's the other thing that triggered in my brain with this, was what about when our kids are using a calm down space, right? Because sometimes they are left sort of alone in there. But we already have in our restraint and seclusion law policy that they cannot be left alone for, any substantial length of time. They need to have an adult with eyes on, making sure that they're safe. So. That's all I have. Move to send JLIA to the full board with the legal reference added, which I haven't been able to find.
I'll second.
Thank you. I will email Ms. Kinsella if I can find it later at home. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we have a lot of policies that are coming up. There were several, I think there were like 100 laws passed this year that made it all the way through the State House and were signed by the governor, and many of them impact school district policies. So Mr. Posca and I have a list, and we are working our way through the list, and we will continue to bring you 5 to 8 policies every month until we make it through the list.
Can we talk a little bit of, sorry, were you about to? I wanted to give a quick update on the phone policy. I think it's been going well, and I think I'd like to apologize for the way that I spoke last time when we were discussing that policy. I
You're
thought
just being honest, dude.
I thought it would be a complete failure. I thought like it would be very bad, but from what I've seen, everything's been really positive. So I wanted to thank everyone for, and I'll acknowledge that I made a mistake.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that it seems to be going well. I was worried about it. I thought there would be some kids that really struggled, and I think the fact that there haven't been any reports that I've heard about elementary or middle school kids, or really freshmen, having problems with that speaks to the fact that those students were already accustomed to not having their phones during the school day. So it's really the top 3 grades that have had to make this adjustment.
I mean, I think when this came up, I think we felt comfortable with the practices that were in place at the elementary school and the middle school. We knew this was going to be a challenge at the high school, and I want to kind of commend Mr. Burns and his team, Mr. Richards and his team for the communication and kind of the publication of what's coming up and those expectations for it. I think that went a great lengths. I think, when it originally came out, I think, if I remember, I forget what freshman orientation, when it was discussed, I think there was a loud round of boos that came about that, and I think that was good because people knew about it, and I think that was setting the expectation was come up. So still a challenge, but I think those administrative teams, both those buildings, have done a great job of not only working with the students but working with the families.
Absolutely. Again, like I'll say it again. I think it's going really well. I think one concern that I'm having is teachers think that they need to call the parents after the first offense. So the first time they see you on your phone, they're calling or they're emailing your parent. And I think we all talked about that quite a bit at the policy meeting on that day, and we agreed that that wasn't necessary. Obviously, they can do whatever they want, like when it comes to communication with the parents. But I think the reason why they're doing it is because they feel like in the policy it says, okay, contact the parent after the first offense. So maybe in the future, the next time we have a policy meeting, if we could just bring it up, and I would like to see an amendment where it just says, teachers do not need to contact the parent after the first offense. I would personally appreciate it being spelled out in writing, just so the teacher knows that no one's obligating them to do that. That's my personal opinion.
That's not how policy gets written, though. It doesn't, we can't possibly make it that clear. They usually write it as a positive, and you have to figure it out if it's really a negative.
Trying to find I forget what the letter is.
I think we had a lot of conversation about that, and then as we started to try to put together a policy, the state shared a policy with us. So we went with kind of what the state had shared. But, I think Shreya's conversation, we did have a lot of conversation about that. And I think in a lot of ways, you did share your concern about that. I'd try to go the other way right now. I think this lends itself to why the policy and why the practice is working so well, because of the communication. And that's really some of the things that we tried to talk about at the buildings is we're all in this together. We're working on a mandate that was given to us by the state, and we're working towards compliance with this mandate. And, knock on wood, as we're 12, 13 days into the school year, we're cautiously optimistic on how it started.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can continue with that process.
No, I get what you're saying. It's just, to me, and you guys know how I feel. I mean,
So we're never going to I will never vote to tell teachers not to talk to parents. Having said that, the policy says, first offense, student will be directed by the teacher to put their phone away. Second offense, the teacher will notify the parent guardian.
exactly. So maybe
So
if we just,
it's not a policy language problem.
okay.
So, there was something else I wanted to mention, but now it's gone. I've lost it. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So moved at 7:17. Yay.